Okay.
They'll be
Thank you.
very confused after they watch our video.
This permaculture bed, we did this 2 weeks ago. These were already pretty well started, so they're not new growth. Were you here for this?
I wasn't there for
Okay,
this
there was
one.
another. But the rhubarb and the horseradish are each a big plant each, and they were set in about yay deep up to where the growth was, and then watered in and mulched. So this this horseradish will eventually fill the whole thing, and the rhubarb will also come up and fill the whole thing. And then we put in a couple of asparaguses. The ones in the greenhouse that we'll look at are way far ahead, and you'll be able to see why, because they're in the protected greenhouse. And I've opted not to cover this. I'm just going to let this grow. We put these in down low, and then the next week we came and trenched over the top of them, adding a little more soil. And as soon as I have 3 or 4 more poking up, I'll go ahead and mulch that bed also, so that stays nice and moist. This bed is about 50% sand, because the asparagus likes pretty well drained, and it likes pretty wet. So to get that combination, we have half sand, half soil. It doesn't like to sit in a bog. It will, but it prefers to have some drainage. So, and then underneath this bed, there's, this bed is soiled down, but underneath it does drain off this way. So I like that. Over on this side, back on the very edge, back there was put in on March 29th, so that's been in the ground for a month. Those were cloves, driven in about 2 inches deep. Some of them are a little close to the board, so they'll have funny shaped cloves. They'll be flat on one side probably, or they'll push over one or the other. Next to that is parsnips. They also were put on the 29th of March. Parsnips are, like parsley, are a very slow germinator, but they can take a lot of cold. So I put those in, and they just emerged last week, maybe 10 days ago. And then, like I said, we did the carrots, the scallions, and the radishes 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, excuse me, and they are all looking gorgeous. We transplanted this chard and this kale. We didn't date that. That would have not been last week or the week before. So these have been around 2 weeks now. We mulched them last week, and then right next to that we seeded in beets, and they are already emerged too. We also seeded in some fava beans here. I see we have really pretty decent germination. We've got a mist hole. I've got the seeds somewhere. I might push one down in there, I might not. I might just leave it. We did this, all of this green crop is a month old, and for the first 10 days it sat and did nothing because it was freezing every night. So it didn't germinate until about 3 weeks ago. About the time we put in the carrots and stuff is when it started to germinate. Last week we did a little weeding. I think we can just go ahead and leave it until next week to weed again. And then this we're gonna clean. Oh, we did peas. So we did peas first week of April. And obviously what's happened here is I've either gotten dud seed or the seeds got too deep. Something went down there and the Cascadia snaps didn't germinate at all. I forget what these say. Oh, those are the purple. So those are those, and the magnolias, and they all went really well. And then if you come over on this side, same kind of thing happened. The golden snow peas, which I just whole golden snow is like, it's a touchy seed name. Anyway, they I didn't have any germination. I dug in there to see if there was anybody, if maybe they were just very slow. But we're gonna overseed in that today, and then these shelling peas are doing awesome. So they look good. We did the broccoli and cabbage last week and covered directly, and it sat for 2 or 3 days before it really grew. And you remember what they were pretty strong last week. So that's like they're really taking off. This is cover crop, and I don't know if we discussed this yet, but this is mostly oats, peas, and there's a little brassica, radishes, and stuff like that in there, and our eggplant. And we can see if they don't need any pruning this week. Don't think.
What are you looking for to check the
Here it is.
45-degree shoots?
Yep. So if you've got a leaf over here, a accomplish with our tomatoes is either 1 liter or 2, not multiples. I'm going to be picky. You want to pick strong ones down low for a liter, so that if you had 2 liters, they would come up like this. If you have a giant bush, you get lots of small green tomatoes. They don't ripen well, they struggle, they don't get big and juicy because there's too much fruit on the vine. So we want to keep the vines, I want to say discriminating, but that's not quite the right word. Where's Sam? She would have given me the right word. Well, I mean, yes, these are, we had 2 of each, determinants and indeterminants, but it's not discriminating, but it's a word like that, which, and we don't want them to, we don't want necessarily more fruit. We want, I'm going to go to a 6th grade expression, more better fruit. We want to choose where they grow fruit from and promote that instead of just letting them, sort of letting our greed take over and say, look at all those tomatoes. Okay, that means you've got a lot of small, hard green tomatoes that have difficulty ripening. So these are probably, I'm going to keep them for the next, well, they'll go in around Memorial Day over in this garden over here. By then they should be yay tall. I keep them cool at night so that they don't, I don't want them to grow super tall right now. I want them to focus on their roots. I want them to grow roots out. That's why we uppotted, to grow big roots. And then we can head up into G1 a lot. They look really nice. And broccoli too, we did that size. So that's about what they were. Okay, so here's your asparagus indoors. So you can really see that there is a significant difference between having it. If we had covered that out there, it would be doing something like this too.
Okay.
I'm content to just let them grow. We're not going to use them as crop. They're just going to grow roots this year anyway. So, but these are 3-year-old plants, I believe, 2 or 3-year-old plants. So they're going to eventually fern out, just like those back there. Once they fern out, they stop producing stalks. So at home, if you harvest asparagus, you need to harvest them when they're short, and only a little bit at a time. But you don't want them to go ferns. It's kind of a, with asparagus, the first year you have it in, you don't pick. The next year you pick for a week, and then you let it go to fern, and the next year you pick for 2 weeks, and then after that you can start picking for 4 or 5 weeks. Depends.
So the fern ones would be like next year would be the picking year? Or?
Actually, with asparagus, the first year it's in the ground, don't pick anything. The next year you pick at the very beginning of the season for a week. So what happens is these are beginning to fern out already like this. So those all looked like this earlier. And then these, as we watch them go, hello, it's okay, you're good. As they go through the season, these will fern, so they become inedible, and they kind of just, instead of making a juicy little spear to eat, they make a big fern, which is what collects their sunlight for them. So then they're taking in energy and storing it for next year. If you keep picking them, they don't fern out. But if you pick them too much and they don't have a chance to make a lot of really good ferns, then they don't store enough energy for the next year and you get a weak crop. So you have to have them in the ground for 3 years before you really start going after it. By 3rd year, you should be able to pick for 4 weeks. So that's generally speaking. And then asparagus likes asparagus, so a large patch is better than 1 or 2 by themselves. And they don't mind, like in that bed right down there, I only put 2 in a 4x4 bed like that. I could easily put 6 in, and then they would just like fill the bed eventually. So, and then let's see. Oh, we were talking about tomatoes. I think they're all down here. And it's this there, and we have a much larger, sturdier plant now that is growing huge roots. So this doesn't have. It has longer roots, but if we look, they're not really well developed. They're pretty slim and stringy, and what we want is we want to see a nice mass of thick white roots. So we'll leave that back in here, and that was essentially, so the progress is really nice to have them side by side, because generally we don't. These are planted in big containers. They didn't didn't sink it all the way to the bottom when they upplanted it. So it's like, it's only going to grow roots in this zone. I wanted ours to grow roots in the entire zone.
Okay.
So more roots, more fruit. So, and then here's a really good pruning thing. As they're coming up, you're going to want to take off those. If you have a lot of tomatoes, wear gloves. They turn your hands kind of a horrible shade of blackish green. And they're sticky, and you want to just take those off.
It's also how you can find out you might be allergic to nightshades.
That's exactly a thing. Yeah, as if your hands so yeah, if I do more than 3 or 4 plants, I'm going to put on some nitrile gloves because it stains for a long time. But that's how you take the suckers off. And then if you wanted to make, like we talked about before, a couple of leaders, you would maybe let this one sucker out and grow. So now you have one top here and another top coming up here. But this is about the right height to choose a secondary leader. Enough off the ground that it's sturdy and strong, but not so close to the ground that it's gonna fall and hit the ground and make more, God forbid you would have more roots on your plants after you've got a branch up. But yeah, and then you can also put your clip here, or you can put your stake, whichever you decide to do, or your cage. But it's harder to prune tomatoes through a cage.
So for this one, would you pot it up again and bury it again, or would you just ground it?
I would actually. If I was taking this one home, I would. But I wouldn't take this one home.
Okay.
I would choose a smaller one and pot it myself in my type of soil.
Yeah.
So you might as well get it used to whatever it's going to go into as soon as possible. So yeah, I tend to buy smaller. I know people love buying big plants with flowers like that. They love it, and that's wonderful. But if I want to make produce, I want big roots. And if I want big roots, I'm going to buy a small plant and have it grow big roots first.
So if you were going to transplant that one outside,
I would
got it.
I would dig a hole all the way up to here. And bury it all the way down. Yeah, because or I'd get a 5-gallon pot for a month and put it in a 5-gallon pot and hope that it would get enough roots before it gets any bigger.
Because I planted my tomatoes before I came to your garden.
Oh yeah,
mine are a little leggy, and I'm like, oh no.
Oh well, just get you a bigger pot.
Okay,
and just bury them in all the way up to their neck. You know, really high, and then all of that will set roots.
Okay, and leave the side sheets on.
You can or not. It doesn't matter too much.
Okay.
Yeah, they won't grow root. Well, they will grow some roots out here, but you really want those roots coming off the
Just
stem.
the stem. Okay.
You can, if you have time, you can take them off, and if you don't,
Okay.
I literally didn't have time. I would have just plunged them all into the ground. I used a post hole digger as deep as I could. Yeah, made a big deep hole, dropped them in, and buried them as deep as I could possibly stand it. Size is a good time to spray your tomatoes with Blossom End Rot.
Okay.
Indoors and out. There's generally not enough calcium in the soil here, so Blossom End Rot is really valuable to them. You can also add liquid calcium or liquid cleated minerals to the soil, but I find Blossom End Rot spray to be awesome. Okay. Just spray them down like the directions say, early in the morning or late in the evening, one or the other.
Are there any other plants you like that? Around this time?
All year
like
round.
Okay.
So, and beans.
Okay.
Peas don't need it. Beans like it. Beans sometimes get black spot. If you don't, they like a lot of calcium. Cucumbers, peppers, all your nightshades except potatoes. So eggplant, peppers, tomatoes, okra, beans, cucumbers, and a lot of people will do zucchinis too. Zucchinis, sometimes you get 6 nice fruit and 1 little tiny. Like, where did that come from? And it's like that Blossom End Rot was focused on that particular fruit. So yeah, I don't think there's a lot of calcium in the natural soil here or in any bags that you're getting. I don't think there's enough for vegetables. And then, so I really don't have a problem with starting them early. I'm not going to start any early for our garden. I'm going to direct sow. Cucumbers don't like their roots touched. So they even have a problem in here where their roots are touching the bottom. And they get very rooty. These are very young plants. That's a lot of roots. So I like to direct sow my cucumbers. If you want to put grown plants in, buy the smallest plants you can find. and don't touch the bottom. Dig the hole, put them in, don't touch the roots. The oil in the acidity and all that, they freak out. Once you transplant them, they're gonna sit in the ground and do nothing for a week or 10 days. In the same situation, you could have put a seed in the ground. It would have set a deep root, 3 or 4 days, it would have popped its head up, and it would be something like this when this one started growing from in the ground. And they tend to have a lot more vigor. Unlike tomatoes, cucumbers, squash, zucchinis, pumpkins, cantaloupes, melons, they don't like to be messed with. Tomatoes get vigor from having a little adversity. Cucumbers give you the finger. So we can transplant. I will show you some things down there. If I'm gonna transplant, I would use peat pots or manure pots and just directly into the ground with those and not try to pull them out or anything. All the varieties have almost identical growth habits on cucumbers. There's a few bush cucumbers, but they always do better when they can be on a trellis and growing up off the ground. Plus you can find the fruit. And there's always the story of the guy who's like, yeah, I planted cucumbers and I mulched them really heavy with right when they came up like this, mulched them really heavy with 3 or 4 inches of straw, and I never got any cucumbers. I couldn't figure it out. Why did I get any cucumbers? And I dug in there, and he had cucumbers under the straw. You just couldn't find them. And he's like, I had like 400 or 500 pounds of gigantic cucumbers. So they like to be on the trellis. They like a lot of airflow. They also like to grow with dill. Kind of ironic that you make pickles with dill and cucumber, but they do. Dill is a fine companion for cucumbers. And then exactly the same with melons. I do find that putting these direct sowing them and putting heavy frost cloth over them will give you the same quantity of fruit later on.
And would you direct sow them like now, or would you direct sow them?
I would wait till Memorial Day. Yeah,
So then are you watching to see which ones have like a complementary growing season for us? Because I know some of those squash, some of those pumpkins, they take a long time.
Yeah, I would plant nothing more than 90 days max. I would never do like 110-day squash.
Because I know like watermelon, cantaloupe, they can be.
There's a Blacktail Mountain, I think, is at 90 days
Okay.
for a melon. Some cantaloupes, Sugar Cube, I think, is at 85 days.
Okay. So you just got to look for the individual ones.
Yep. One of the problems with melons and peppers too is that they don't like that temperature change between night and day, which is why they don't grow well here. It's not because it's too hot or too cold or whatever, it's because that temperature changes. Melons will do really great in a situation where the temperature is always 70 or within 20 degrees of 70, so it could pop up to 90 and it could pop down to 50. The problem here is like yesterday, we have a 70-degree day and a 34-degree night. That's almost just too big for them. Even in June and July, when you got 80 to 90-degree days, you're still looking at sometimes a 45-degree night. That's a huge spread for those guys, so they love the frost cloth. Frost cloth will at least keep them about 4 or 5 degrees warmer overnights. And it'll actually keep them a little bit cooler in the day, which is fine. So I would say if you are not absolutely crazy for melon, I mean, just like, that's it, I gotta have melon, I would buy melon because it's a big real estate. It uses quite a bit of real estate vertically and horizontally. A lot of food, a lot of fussiness. So Dixon melons, they got that little microclimate on their farm where the temperature is really consistent. So, and then same with squash and pumpkins down there too. We're gonna wait, but if you did want to, these delicatas are at 100 days. That's 100 days for a hard-shelled winter storage fruit. But they will make 5 or 6 squash per plant. These are a little close together, but they seem to do okay too. I would rather have them 8 inches apart on a 5 days. So you're definitely going to see acorn in the middle of August, towards the end of August, that you're going to be able to eat. whether you plant these or direct sow, either one. Big onions, select a sunny location. Plant in spring as soon as the soil can be worked. I would say anytime after April 20th here is fine. Too early, they might bolt and go to seed before they have a chance, before the sun changes, and I'll explain that in a minute. Or 6 inches large. And then, when the tops fall over, then you start to harvest. The other method is to do small onions and you plant them very close together. I mean, I was going like that, or even closer, drop, 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 in tight rows. And then that tight row then expands as you go down the row. So you got 25 feet of onions, and you're gonna do 10 feet really tight, very close together. The next 10 feet, a little bit further apart. And then the next feet even a little bit further apart. Then you have spring, mid-season, and bulbing onions. So then you pull these guys, and I take the small ones out, grade them, that's what I call it. Take the small ones out, and I'm gonna put those in the rows close together. And then the biggest ones are gonna go on that far apart. Now I have spring, mid-season onions, and storage onions out of one pack. And then you can share with your friends too. So it takes a little bit of time to do that, but then you can actually get storage onions that you can then put into the root cellar, or even, downstairs in the basement or whatever, for quite a long time. Onions like to grow up. If you set them in, they like to grow up. They get a nice top on them, and then after solstice, they bulb. They generally don't start really swelling until after solstice. So if they don't have at least 6 weeks in the ground before the solstice, a lot of times their tops won't be big enough to get a big bulb. So then you'll get small, kind of, they never are satisfying. You want an onion, it's like satisfying, big onion. So I like to get them in the ground now, this week, and I like to cover them. When I cover them, it really pushes them forward. So what you looking for? For just summer use. Red onions store for about 3 months if they're well kept and well cured.
I'm still using mine from last year.
Yeah, I was
It
gonna
has
say,
lasted me all year.
Same.
So if you can get good yellow onions, that's the way to
This is
go.
the only place I've ever found them
Oh, good.
that I've been able to keep them all year long.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
What were you talking about just now? I'm curious.
Oh, we're having a gardening class. So yeah, we're talking about how to get onions to grow well. So
Oh, is that what you're talking about, putting them in, covering them now?
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's what we're gonna do today. I'm waiting on my sweet peas, so.
So, and then do you guys have any onion questions I can answer?
So storing, I literally just cover them and put them in a bucket in a cold, dry, dark spot of my house.
Yes.
That's it, right?
Well, I pull them out of the ground in August, let them lay on the ground for 3 or 4 days and turn them over so that they get a nice crispy, dry skin. Cut the tops, put them in bags or buckets or whatever, so that there's not a whole lot of moisture. I like to let those tops dry back to nothing before I do that, because if they have wet tops and you put them in even a little bit of a moist area, there's room for molds and bacteria to get down inside there. So I would leave them outside for a week or so, get them nice and dry. I did have some big tables built where I would lay them out on the tables, and then every day come by and just turn them over and turn them over. If I saw it was going to get frosty, I'm going to throw a frost cloth over those onions so they don't. But it's not going to ruin them. It just, the frost adds moisture. So I keep the moisture off of them and then let them cure. That's what I call that. And then after they're cured, then put them in a cool spot, and then check them regularly.
And you would do that regardless of whether you're keeping them to eat them or keeping them to plant next year?
I would not plant onions from big onions next year.
Right, but you were talking about the big ones, the little ones, and the tiniest
so
ones.
the green onions, I would have eaten those.
Okay.
I would have eaten those in the summer, and then the medium set, I would have eaten those early ones in June to July, eat the next ones July and August, and then start eating my storage.
I'm caught now.
Yeah, and then you can also do 2 sets of green onions too. You could put in some now. You could put in some again in June. They're just going to grow you like scallions. But you can also put in scallions which don't bulb. That's the difference.
And soil type for onions? What are they like for watering and for soil?
They take 1 inch a week and once a week. The first week I put them in, I might water them twice, maybe 3 times in 10 days. And then after that, I'm gonna go to 1 inch of water a week. I'm gonna let them dry down a little bit in between. The more the roots spread, the bigger your onions can get. The bigger the tops, the bigger your onions can get. And you wanna have it doesn't need to be super rich soil, but it does need to have, again, that mineral. The problem with Montana is that the minerals are not always available. So a chelated mineral in the soil will really help. And then there's also fancy onions like cipollinis and tears of tropia, and there's walking onions. There's all kinds of specialty onions, and shallots are the same kind of thing. Pretty much all treated the same way. Some of those walking onions, you don't get good onions for a couple of years because they don't walk. They literally grow up, seed, drop their seed, and replant themselves more than anything. Sometimes they bulb off the sides, but yeah, I think they're kind of, they were trendy for a while. Yes. They and then sometimes here in Montana, it just gets so cold in the winter that the bulb just freezes and dies anyway. So they're tricky, but I have potato information, which you guys can all photograph right here. But we'll probably go through a lot of this, but just real quick, we'll look at different, oh, here we go. This is the size that you need. This is about the minimum size of a seed potato. It should be about 2 ounces. 4 is better, 6 is too big. This is too big. So this one, if I wanted to plant this, I would have cut this in half 2 days ago and put it in a brown paper sack. Let it sit in a brown paper sack and kind of heal a little bit. So it's not so wet and fresh when I put that cut in the ground. You can let them set up to a week in that paper bag. They will also sprout more, which is fine. Having big eyes on it is not a problem right now. You want to pick one that's firm. You can pass them around. You don't want to pick a squishy, sad, bleh. You want them to be nice and firm. And I have some others that we can touch that will show us that they're a little soft. Soft means they've already converted their water and sugars to other things. You don't want to choose anybody with too green. Green is a sign of selenium. Potatoes need selenium, but if it's already risen to the surface, it won't necessarily be accessible to the plant as the plant grows. So you want them to be nice and brown and fresh. Seed potatoes should never have been washed, so they should have dirt on them. If they are clean, they're probably grocery store potatoes that have been sprouted. We don't want that. Potatoes are grown. The seed potato is grown and they should have a tag wherever you buy them. If you don't buy them here, they should have a certification tag. This is Montana certified seed potatoes. So potatoes are grown in a cycle where they make a seed. I don't know if you've ever seen a potato seed on a plant, a green plant. So that seed can be grown into what they then call a nuclear potato, and it's a small, tiny, potent potato. A nuke can grow 30 to 40 times its weight in potatoes. So that nuke potato, the seed farmers keep that. They don't sell those. It's really hard to get nukes. Then so they grow that potato. That fall, they harvest the nuke potatoes. Those are called Generation 1. Seed potato farmers don't sell Generation 1 except to each other. They don't sell them retail. Those you get about 20% yield. So if I plant, you should get 20%, how do I say that? 10 pounds of Generation 1 should give you 200 pounds of potatoes. That's what, I don't know, I didn't say that right, but that's how that works. You get huge volume. Every time you go, so then you take, let's say you were lucky enough to get Generation 1, and you got your seeds and you saved some of those potatoes. Instead of eating them all, you saved some for next year's seeds. You had the right conditions. Those then become Generation 2. Your Generation 2 should give you 10 times. But it's not percent, it's times. So you plant in 10 pounds of potatoes. Of Generation 1, you should get 100 pounds of potatoes. Then you start to get into generation 3 and it begins to drop. Generally, seed potatoes are sold on the retail as generation 2 or 3. We put on here what each generation is. G2, I think there's G3s, all those are G3s. By the time you get to generation 3 and 4, and especially 5, you're getting very small yields, almost nothing with a grocery store potato, which is usually a Gen 4 or 5. And so if you plant grocery store potatoes, and a lot of times they've been sprayed with seed inhibitor so that you can't grow, they don't, but you're also looking at 2 to 5% yield. You know, you're gonna put in 10 pounds of potatoes and you're gonna get 12 pounds of potatoes. What's the point? Eat the 10 pounds of seed, kind of my thought there. But definitely when you're looking, if they don't have the tag, ask for the tag. There's legally you're supposed to keep the tag with the seeds to prove what generation they are. Because if somebody's unscrupulous, they'll sell, you know, generation 4 potatoes at the same price, and you'll get nothing, and you'll think it's your fault because you don't. Most people don't know that that's how potatoes are dealt with. So we will. You guys can. We can't do. I only have space to do like 3. Oh, look, there's 3 of you. So let's pick 3 different potatoes. We want to look for something that's. Oh, here's a really good example. This one's a little squishy. Feel how squishy that guy is. We want to look for somebody about that size though. We don't want to cut, so we want to find a whole potato, and you guys dig through there and pick a potato each. And I don't. And then I've noticed that I have not put dates on, and I usually
Do that?
I would normally at home. So onions are super easy to transplant, and you don't have to treat them like super nice or anything. This is a little awkward spot, so I'll lean over and do that. But you're going to dig your furrow in, just like we always do. Nice and deep. And it doesn't. We don't have to make it wide. So then you're going to take your little onions. I always do the squeeze, 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 and then you know, just do it.
Yep.
You can just drop that soil. I've got really nice roots. I'm going to just kind of tease them apart. Exactly. And I'm going to try to keep them in the shade a little bit, but I'm not going to worry too much. I'm just going to drop them over here. Oh, I'm going to come in here. So then you've got your roots. So I like to ask it to grow more roots. So I'm going to take off some. And I'm going to ask it to set some more roots and sit out in the sun for a while. I'm going to go down and I'm going to watch this. I'm going to push it this way and then this way and then bury it in. And the reason why I did the this way then this way is that I have the roots. So here I'm going to trim. And if you can kind of, and then I want them to get nice and big. So I'm going to come over here and pull this aside. And then if you can see it, I'm going to go in this way first, and then I'm going to pull the plant back to the center and get those roots spread out. And then
Are you mounding it all, or are you just sticking?
I'm not going to mound. If I was doing onions on the farm, I'd build like an 18-inch mound like this, straight down the middle. But here I don't want to do that. So, and then we're going to keep going. Same.
You just go like 2 inches-ish, inch and a half.
Deep?
Or no, for the roots where you chop out.
Oh yeah, I'm just gonna I see some new babies,
And that's where you,
and I'm
okay.
going just below those.
Good.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna come apart.
Where are the new babies at?
The new
Just the
little
shorter
baby
one,
roots, just the
little
short
roots.
roots.
I see.
Yeah.
The roots. Okay.
Yeah. So then I'm gonna go out and down, spread them out, and then plant them in. You don't have to worry about depth too much. The onions are gonna grow up. They set their shoulders above ground anyway, so we can just do this. All this is doing, all that touching the roots on there is doing is saying, hey, grow more now. You know, you've lost some. Get busy. and I are crazy different soil amendments and stuff like that. They just like consistent 1 inch a week and decent soil that's not too heavy clay. And one more. Woohoo!
Got it?
Yeah, I can barely get there. There we go. Okay, and so then
Discover
these
your
guys,
acrobatic nature.
Yeah, right.
I will water those in, and then they're gonna go under this cover too. I'm probably gonna swap this cover out for lightweight cover today because this is starting to get so that it doesn't need any protection. But I still want it to get nice, juicy, big leaves like that. So then leeks are an onion type thing that don't bulb. And if you imagine those onions are going to be able to grow up where they're almost going to touch each other as they grow up. But leeks get about that big around, and so I put them about that far apart. I don't mind it if their roots grow in a big mass. This is going to be a reach too because I'm going to put them here next to the chard, which chard and beets love anything in the onion family. They're really good companions. Cabbage is not so bad either. They are pretty good companions. So I'm going to pull the mulch aside, and
These are just regular leeks.
yes, these are just regular leeks. I'm going to pull the mulch aside. They're going to be able to go pretty good and close because they don't get big. Yeah, these are just leeks. And I'm going to do oh wait, I'm going to dig out first. I like them. But normally in your garden, I mean, unless you're like crazy for leeks, I'd only put in a few as just like a fun trial thing. You know, they're really easy to grow. They're really hard to grow from seed in the ground. You just start them in late January. They take a long time to germinate. Here we go. Same thing. I'm just gonna split them apart and tease them.
That with every plant that you're transplanting?
No.
No, just those.
Only these because I need to separate them from each other. Tomatoes, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
with.
Pepper and it'll just.
Yeah, your pepper will flip you off and die.
Okay.
Yeah. I've got this little tiny one right here. I'm going to put him up in the front where there's a little less space, and exactly the same as I did with onions. So I'm just going to pull that off, that extra length. But I'm going to go a lot closer together. And I'm putting these, I'm not going as tight as I could.
It's not like half, but 3/4.
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to do this, I put my fingers out
Right.
like that and then go into where my index finger was.
And you're not snipping roots on these.
She's
are-
pulling them off.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I didn't snip. There's not very many. So I just took this.
Do a little
Yeah,
pinch.
I just pulled those longer ones
Thank you.
off. And then here we go, where I just go up fingers.
Very exact science.
Yeah, it's not. But, and then I'm gonna mulch those up like that too. You want to keep your leeks in the dark, the plants, because they get nice big white bottoms. You can also add worm mulch later on in the season. The more white up the stem on the leeks, the more soft, tender, juicy onion part you have. Otherwise, you get a small amount of white juicy and a lot of green. So I hill them as I grow. I start with a small raised, like my same type of, I would do a raised thing for onions and leeks, put them down the center, put 2 rows of irrigation pipe, and then as the summer goes on, my onions are exposing, but my leeks are getting reburied with more and new fresh mulch all the time. I want to mulch them up about this high, because then I have 6 inches of nice white leek to work with. And I like the white part better than the green. I mean, the green's fine, but I like the white part. So next week we'll do some celery back in there. So that's going to be the celery spot. Celery needs a little real estate, so we'll do that. And then potatoes. And 1 pea germinating. Oh, I see it. Here's the reason. There it is. It was too deep. I think we got a little crazy deep on that. It's got a decent root, but because it's just so deep, they just didn't have just didn't have enough oomph to emerge. So we're gonna just let them go. We're not gonna fight about that. But we'll set in a few more. And there's, oh yeah, here they are. They got too deep down in here. And too deep is hard to say with peas because sometimes you can get them 3 or 4 inches deep, but 2 is about ideal. So what we'll do here though is we'll leave him because he's up. And then pull these guys out. And this is called overseeding or reseeding. And if you had if they sparsely germinated, you could stick some more in there. So I'm just break that up a little.
You aren't here for P Day. You can come over.
Pea day.
I was like, oh God, did I plant them too deep? This was the line I planted.
And yours is. Oh, oh yes, that's right. So.
That might have been the one I did.
Oh, I'm not judging. I mean, it's good to learn.
Well, and that's the thing. Yeah, you don't know until the plant comes up whether you made it happy or not.
Yes.
And even if you did, you probably might not have made it happy.
And you can see how snuggly they are. That's a really good set right there. So we'll go here, and we'll keep going in something like the same. This one might not germinate because look how deep it's going to be. And I could dig it out if I wanted to, but I probably won't. Separate those guys. And over here on the end, and I like it. And then we'll do the same on the back side over there.
And as far as these, because I mean, it's not quote too late to plant them.
Nope, it's fine. They'll germinate. They'll germinate relatively quicker than those, and they'll catch up.
Just because it's warmer, right?
Yeah, because it's warmer. And it's just one thing that if you wait until now when you've got so much else to do, you might as well put the early ones in.
Fair.
So, rock here too. So then I'm going to go in and
So you don't keep this guy covered.
keep what?
You don't keep these guys covered.
The seed?
With the frost cloth.
Peas.
Oh no, peas don't like frost cloth at
They
all.
like-
Yeah, they prefer the air. I tried it one year to see if I could push them ahead further, and they just didn't grow underneath the cloth. Beans will really well. So then we'll do this over here too. We can do this afterwards if you want. We'll go ahead and seed some more in on that side because those I think were dud seed because I got nothing. I dug down 3 inches, didn't find anything.
Which
Those-
ones?
They were the golden snow peas. I think that was, I mean, I didn't even get a single. I got 0, so I think those were bad seed. So with this, we're going to do the potatoes in here. We're going to be kind of growing mini potatoes. So we'll want to break this up. And I have the tool, and I might let you guys break this up. I'm going to put this here to remind you to not break up too close. We want to break this up pretty soft all the way down. Here's the tool. I'm just gonna go wash my hands. You guys can fight over who gets to do it. And somebody else could take the peas around and set those on the other side too. We're already doing
How deep you want? 6?
We've got 4.
No, I mean like how deep? 6 inches?
Oh, I need it broke up all the way down.
Okay.
Or not all the way, but most of the way down. Yeah.
What are we doing with peas?
You know, we're gonna
Seeding that
overseed.
line. And anywhere where there's gaps.
We're gonna overseed that edge back there.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, where they didn't come up at all, and then we'll rewrite a sign too on there, so that they're not
other
golden
side.
snow peas. Yeah, the other side. I'd probably only put 2, but I really want to do the 4, so we'll just. So potatoes, generally speaking, plant them 18 inches apart to 2 feet apart. So yeah, this is going to be tight, but we're going to put 1 over here, and we'll wait till she's finished so she can wash 2. Go 1 here, 1 here, and then 1, 2. And then I'll see my knife really quick too, because we're going to use that. Potatoes also, like peas, they want to be deep, but they want to be pretty deep. And then we're going to hill over the top of them later. So we're going to go about 6 inches deep when we put them in. I'm going to go a deep hole, loose, loose, loose. At home I would use a shovel, and I would actually dig a hole and put that soil aside. have a shovel or need that here. I'm gonna go way down. There's about 6 inches down. What I would do if the soil was dry is take my hose and fill that with water. And then, if you want to grab me a seed. Where did they go? Where did I say? Oh, you found them? Okay. Yep. And then I've got eyes, and I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and put the eyes upward, down in the hole. And I leave them like that until I get them all set. So I'll do this one here, and then give you guys this, and one there, one out there.
Right here-ish?
Yep.
Like here's.
So I'm gonna go down 6 inches, and then I've got my eyes, and look how they're starting to grow naturally. I might as well not ask them to turn around, and then way down. And then one more hole will go there. And that's a little deep now.
I was finding big rocks.
Oh, that's okay, they don't.
They don't care? Okay.
How about that? I look right.
Yep, and then if you want to use this, you can see it might be a little shallow here. And then yeah, just check your eyes to make sure your eyes are pointed upwards. That really helps. Then, like I said, I would normally have filled these holes with water and then set my potato in. And in the meantime, I'm gonna just fill it over. And I'm gonna leave a shallow depression where my potato is, and then I build a little well where it's not. So I've got a shallow depression where my potato is, and then all this excess soil is just going to sit up and around the outside, because when these guys then get to be, when they come up and break the surface, and I've got 3 or 4 inches of plant, then I'm going to take this extra soil and put it around that plant to heal them up. And then after they get 3 or 4 more inches above that, I'm going to cover the whole thing except for the plants with rotty straw. And the rottenest, bestest straw I can find. There's no my opinion of straw. It should be moldy. And then this one here, let's get this depression here nice and big. Like I said, I don't think we need to water. There is plenty of moisture in this bed now. And now we can label. I think we did butterball, fingerling over here, and I don't remember. I didn't pay attention what you guys did. Potato, potato, butterball. Okay.
You got a purple majesty, right?
Vinking? Is that what it said? Purple vinking?
Oh, purple Viking.
Viking.
Oh, okay,
I
yeah,
saw
she got
an N in
Vikings
there,
then.
They're yummy.
Okay, so this is, where was that?
Because mine was here, and that was a purple skinned. Or did you have a red?
I had a golden.
Okay, then
That's
that
here.
one.
You had the butterball.
I had
over here.
the
Yep, I
butterball,
put it in for you. That's all.
Perfect.
Okay, then
Yeah,
we
that
had-
one had red skin where MJ just put
Yeah, we had a French fingerling and then the all blue, I think it was.
Yeah, that was definitely a light colored.
And then now here, we want to make sure to pull this back.
Did you say the one fingerling?
Yeah, French fingerling. Yeah, not the Russian banana. So that we don't have the same